August 5th, 2010, San José copper mine, Chile. 33 men clock in. Nothing special about the shift, except the mountain they're standing under has been quietly falling apart for over a century, and today it decides to finish the job. 2,000 feet of solid rock collapses above them, sealing off the only way out with a slab of granite the size of a skyscraper. Not a door, not a wall, a skyscraper lying sideways, blocking their exit. They are now half a mile underground. For context, that's deeper than the height of the Empire State Building. If you dropped the Empire State Building into the earth and stood on top of it, that's roughly how far up these guys needed to climb just to see daylight again. And nobody topside even knows if they're alive.
Meet Mario. Mario is a miner. Mario did not sign up for this. Mario signed up to operate heavy machinery and go home for dinner. Instead, Mario and 32 other guys are now stuck in a shelter the size of a small apartment, roughly 500 square feet, for a group that's about to spend more time together than most married couples do in a year. Here's the part people skip when they tell this story. Surviving a mine collapse isn't really a physical problem. It's a math problem wearing a psychology costume. You've got 33 grown men who need food, water, and air in a space with none of those things in any real supply, and the only tool they have to fix that is each other's brains. The emergency food supply, the stuff meant to last a rescue crew a couple days, had to somehow stretch to feed 33 people for an unknown amount of time. Nobody in that shelter knew if help was coming in 2 days or 2 months, so they had two options: panic and eat everything immediately like it's a buffet, or ration it like their lives depend on it, because they do. They chose rationing: 2 spoonfuls of tuna, a sip of milk, half a cookie split between 2 guys every 48 hours, voluntarily, while starving, while trapped under a mountain. That's not a diet plan. That's group-wide self-control under conditions that would make most people lose their minds within a day. This is where the shift foreman, a guy named Lewis, becomes the most important person on Earth without ever throwing a punch or firing a gun. Lewis didn't have superpowers. He had a clipboard mentality and the willingness to be the bad guy. He assigned roles. Someone was in charge of rationing food. Someone patrolled for structural safety. Someone kept time, because down there, with no sunlight, your body genuinely forgets what a day is. Without a clock, the human brain will happily convince you that 6 hours felt like 2 hours, or that 2 hours felt like a full night's sleep. Time becomes a suggestion instead of a fact. So Lewis built a schedule out of nothing: wake times, rationed meals, designated sleeping areas, designated bathroom areas, which in a space that small might genuinely be the most heroic decision made in the entire ordeal. Structure wasn't a luxury here. Structure was the only thing standing between 33 functioning humans and 33 guys losing it completely.
Here's the problem with trapping humans in the dark for extended periods. The brain does not like uncertainty, and it especially does not like uncertainty combined with darkness, hunger, and 95% humidity, which is what these guys were dealing with. Not humid like a rainforest, humid like breathing through a wet towel, permanently in complete blackness for weeks. Some of the miners started hallucinating. Some heard voices. One miner later admitted he considered ending things early rather than starving slowly before talking himself out of it. This wasn't weakness. This is just what a human brain does when it's starved of light, food, and information all at once. Isolation this extreme doesn't just make you sad. It can genuinely start rewriting what your senses tell you is real. The men who held up best weren't necessarily the toughest guys physically. They were the ones who gave their brain a job, praying on a schedule, telling stories on a schedule, literally anything that turned endless, formless time into something with edges. The ones who just sat and waited with nothing to occupy the mind suffered the most. For the first 17 days, the miners had no contact with the surface. Not a whisper, not a knock, nothing. Meanwhile, topside, rescue teams were drilling boreholes into solid rock in the vague hope of finding an air pocket that happened to contain 33 living humans instead of 33 corpses, and they genuinely did not know which one they were going to find. Picture being on the other end of that. You don't know if the world still remembers you exists. You don't know if the drilling sound you might be hearing is rescue or just more rock deciding to fall on you. 17 days of that would break most people's sense of hope entirely. Then on day 17, a drill bit breaks through into their shelter, and in one of the more insane plot twists in survival history, the miners tie a note to the drill bit as it withdraws. It says in Spanish that all 33 of them are alive and in the refuge. 17 days of silence, and the first proof of life the entire country gets is a handwritten note taped to a piece of mining equipment. The moment that note reached the surface, this stopped being a local mining accident. It became a national obsession, then a global one.
Here's the twist nobody expects. Finding them alive on day 17 did not mean rescue was close. Engineers estimated it would take months to drill a shaft wide enough to pull a human being through solid rock. Months! The miners had survived the hardest part, starvation, isolation, uncertainty, only to be told, congratulations, you now get to do most of that again, except this time you know exactly how long it's going to take, and you have to sit with that number in your head every single day. This is where the psychology gets genuinely fascinating. NASA, yes, that NASA was brought in to consult on how astronauts survive long-term confinement. Because functionally, these men were now doing a space mission, just underground instead of in orbit. Engineers sent down food capsules through a narrow borehole along with letters from family, and eventually a fiber optic cable so they could see and speak to loved ones. They also sent down actual light equipment, not for visibility, but to trick the miners' brains into keeping something resembling a day and night cycle, because without it, their bodies would have completely forgotten what a sleep schedule even was. 69 days. That's how long it took, start to finish, for a rescue capsule barely wider than a person's shoulders to pull all 33 men, one at a time, through 2,000 feet of rock back into daylight. When the first miner finally emerged on live television, watched by roughly 1 billion people worldwide, he didn't collapse, he didn't cry immediately. He hugged his family, and then he cracked jokes with the president of Chile like he'd just finished a regular shift. That single moment tells you almost everything about what kept these guys alive down there. Somewhere between the rationed tuna and the flashlight sleep schedule and the handwritten note on a drill bit, these men had built something that functioned like a tiny, stubborn society, and that society is genuinely the reason all 33 of them made it out alive. Not luck, structure, not toughness, discipline. The mountain didn't care about any of that, but the humans underneath it did, and that's the entire difference between this story ending in a rescue and ending in a memorial. Anyway, if you ever complain about your Wi-Fi going out for 10 minutes, maybe think about these guys first. Bye.